Okay, friends and neighbors, DK here with Mr. V Amps, and we have a Fender Bassman. I believe he said it's like a 66, I think is what the year was. But I perchance to have one just like it. I'm fairly certain it's the same circuit. But allegedly this particular amp hums a lot. So that's what we're going to address. So let's turn it on. I've got my junk speaker on the floor. It's got younger tubes in it. It's got newer, younger tubes in it. Okay, so we're powering up. Give the tubes a moment to warm. It's got JJ power tubes in there. I don't know what preamp tubes it has. We're just going to verify the issue. Okay. Now I'm not hearing massive humming. I've got the speaker connected. Okay. There's some. Can you hear that? It's 120 hertz and there's some. So not severe, but we're going to see if we can quiet this down. This is for a jazz guy, and jazz guys like quiet amps, so let's see what maintenance needs done. Okay, this is a bit of a head scratcher. I knew I wasn't the first monkey in the jungle from talking to the customer before. Obviously these yellow tubulars are replacement bypass caps, so that's fine. I don't recognize those resistors. I don't know if they were trying to I don't know. I'll double check. I don't remember those from mine because I have one that's very similar. Now Fender had revisions, so this might be just a different revision. But we've got new, original. And why do we have original electrolytics out here? The bias cap over here, that's been changed. To what value? I don't know. Kids. That's a 100-100. That's perfectly fine. That's probably what I would have done. And then we still have like the original 470 ohm resistors there on the tubes. The screen resistors are original. I didn't hear a ton of hum, but obviously those are older than me. The bypass caps here are well older than me. Let's see what's under the doghouse. Okay, so here's what we find under here. Tech cap made in USA. This is obviously not old. I'm not familiar with that maker. And then I wanted to look at these, and these are supposed to be, I think the stock value is 70 microfarad at 350 volts, and these are 220 microfarad at 300 volts. So, and then that was desoldered. So that would be a problem. That would definitely be a problem. You'd lose your first stage of filtering. Now it was like really close. It might have been touching when I fired it up, but I wonder if is there a date code on these? Maybe I can see something. Like some of these have date codes on them. TIAA 18 85C. These two aren't the right ones for this, because this is supposed to be this is supposed to be a AB165, which is what I have, and an AB165 definitely wouldn't have those values in there. Oh, geesh. Okay, so Stock values for this were supposed to be 70, 70, 20, 20, 20, and then this was originally 8. So, you know, I can understand shifting a little bit on values. Like if 22 is a perfectly acceptable replacement for 20. 22 is overkill for an 8, I would say. And 220 is definitely overkill for a 70. I would think this might make it sound a little underwater. And then I'm curious how these internodal resistors are feeling. And I think I'm going to talk to Dude. By the way, all the 3 preamp 12AX7s are electro harmonics, and the phase inverter was a JJ. They're all young newish tubes. I'll talk to Buddy and see what he wants to do. Okay, let's call this hypothesizing. When I saw it, I got a minor hum or buzz, but it wasn't until I touched this cap that it just fell out of where it was soldered. So if this was poorly soldered, the buzz and hum would come and go, and then if you smack the amp, it'd probably go away. Whoever soldered in these tech caps, they cut the old caps off, and then they just laid these on top and then just tried to bury them in solder rather than trying to get them to go down in the sockets or in the holes. I put one of these tech caps on the tester. Microfarad value looks bang on. The ESR looks really low. I mean, these things can't be that old. They're maybe, you know, they're not old. I just know they're not. And they're US made. These are probably, I mean, they're wrapped in blue. This might be just the house brand version of Sprague. I started checking internodal resistors here. The 1K is bang on. The 4.7K is reading 5.2, and then the 27K is bang on. So got a little bit too much voltage drop going on there, and then we've got some, you know, wrong values. But 220, that says 70 on the schematic. Guys, come on. Okay, so everybody knows I'm a J-hook kind of guy, but I mean, this one, like when I heated it up to pull that out of tolerance resistor, this one just fell off because it's just laying on top with a blob of solder. Seriously, bend it 90 degrees and shove it in the hole. If you're going to replace them entirely, fine, or if you're going to J-hook them, fine, but have a good connection. Grrr. Okay, so I'm done in here. I don't think these are bad, so I left the 3 that are the appropriate value for the position they're in. This one on the schematic was a smaller one. I believe it said 8 on the schematic, so something like 10 or 12 is more appropriate for that than, because I don't think anybody's making 8s that are high voltage right now, but you know, closer. And then these stupid things that weren't even soldered correctly, these were 220. The book says 70, so I mean, I can understand if you put, you know, you're putting them in series, so you're gonna go to half, so 270s makes a 35, or if you had like 2 100s, it would make a 50. But 2 220s for 110, that's not what the schematic calls for, not even close. Alright, so I'm going to call this side okay. I'm going to put the doghouse back on, flip her back over. Did anybody notice this power transformer looks awfully shiny? The code on it says 606612. So the 6 could be 1966 or 1986 or something. What's the code on the other transformer? That's also a 606. And this says 606629. That may be an original set. I'm surprised there's not more rust on that. Well, that's a good thing, right? Okay, this is what I can't fathom. These bypass caps are replaced by .022, which I think the original was .02, so that's an appropriate replacement. This was replaced with .1, which I think is the correct value. We're going to double check that. We got a resistor replaced over here. But why are those bypass caps still there? Right. So the 100 on the bias way up here, that's fine. I would have done that. That makes sense. See, we got a new resistor up here on the input. I think those are what, probably the 68s. I don't know if somebody was playing around. Those are usually 68Ks, and then there's a 1 meg to earth. Now I'm going to get after these. That's going to be 2, 4, 5 of those. We'll get after those, and then we'll start sniffing around up here and see what's going on. This is bizarre. This just doesn't look like a typical maintenance job. It looks like, I don't know what this looks like. I mean, y'all have watched enough. Anybody who watches amp channels pretty much knows you get a 30-40 year old amp, you electrolytic caps always, and usually like the most critical bypass caps, and then check the resistors and replace any that are out of tolerance. This resistor up here on the input, how would that be out of tolerance? It doesn't see any voltage. What would cause that to go out? Unless this is like a creative modification. Ay. Okay, so that went fine. I took care of the electrolytic caps up here at the top. This still has a 2-prong cord on it. And obviously that can lead to noise and electric shock. And I had a discussion with the owner about doing it, and I'm going to put the ground wire on a lug and screw it to the power transformer. So it's going to be a, you know, a non-damaging proposal. We're not going to have to cut any holes or do anything like that. It's going to be pretty straightforward, and if somebody really wants to go back to stock, you'll have all the pieces parts. I need to check those 470 resistors though, the screen resistors. Okay, yeah, so the 2 screen resistors that go down on the power tubes, they were out. They're supposed to be 470 ohm, and they were probably around 530. It's not terrible, but it's not great. So power cord's next. Okay, so it's been a few minutes anyway. I'm a little perplexed by the last issue here. I got the 3-prong cord in, that's fine, no issues there. For the bias, getting these things to balance, it's just not balancing, and obviously it came with a set of factory balanced matched tubes that are almost new in it. That would make sense that was, you know, be good. And I tried, you know, my set of tubes, and I'm still getting an imbalance. So I checked the grid resistors there. They're supposed to be 1.5K. They're a little off, and I'm seeing like maybe 50 or minus 50 volts on one side, and maybe like minus 48 volts on one side, and I think it's just enough to cause a significant swing. So I'm going to try to find a pair of resistors that are just dead matched. Okay, after quite a bit of messing around, I did change some of the resistors in the bias circuit just to make sure everything is nails on. You know how those things can climb and then things will walk and move around. I got everything balanced. If you listen to our speaker, I'm not hearing humming. I got a minuscule amount of hiss, but I mean that's nothing. This is silence. Pretty much for a 50 watter, so I'm okay with that. I am okay with that. So we got some new electrolytics across the way here. I left their film caps be, and we redid the electrolytic section the way it was intended to be done at the factory, as opposed to these huge, you know, this is not the factory values, guys. I mean, if you have the I understand if you're changing a 20 to a 22, or maybe even like a 70 to an 80, or maybe even a 70 to a 100. I understand. Not all the values are available. If you need a 50 and you use a 47, that's fine. You know, there's reasons, but when it calls for a 70 and you're using a 220, You know, obviously more filtering is better because it's quieter, right? But at some point you end up kind of bogging down your transformer, and then you kind of lose your life. You lose your snap, and you end up in the mud. So there you go. Old Fender Bassman in super duper good condition. Pretty cool. You guys want to see me play this thing? Probably you do. I gotta get a good speaker then. Do I have to? I think we all know what a Bassman sounds like. I have one. I'm gonna call it good anyway.